Good morning, everybody. My name is Hillary Ritt, and I'm the Workforce and Adult Services Consultant at the Department for Libraries and Archives. I want to thank you all so much for being here today. This is the webinar today is celebrating 250 libraries and their impact. And Maddie Menz from the Kentucky Historical Society, she's their America250 Kentucky Education Specialist, is here to share with us today about that. So I'm again delighted to have you all here, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to Maddie. Thank you so much for being here. And please, if you've got questions, you can type those in the chat. I also, a couple more quick housekeeping things. My colleague Tricia is taking care of captioning. We do have live captioning available today, and you can, there's stream text link that's in the chat, and then you can also say yes when you come in that captions are available. The slides for today's webinar are available in your online learning portal, so those will be available. And then the webinar is being recorded today, so it will be made available later on in the portal and on KDLA's archived webinar site. Let us know if you have any questions in the chat, and then I will turn it over to Maddie. Thank you all so much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Maddie Menz. As Hillary's already kind of introduced me, I am the Education Specialist for the America250 Kentucky Commission for the American Semi-Quincentennial, which is a very long word, but at the end of it, you will exactly know what that means. In short, this next July will be 1 year out from July 2026, which marks 250 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And so just going to go over an overview of what is America 250 for you all. And then I have the chat open as well. So if you have any questions right away, I can answer that as we go along, because also I can yap for hours. So if I get other people also yapping, it'll be better for us all. So in short, what is America 250? So it's basically about how the United States has made strides, has had setbacks since the founding and the signing of the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia in 1776. And so 250 years of America and American democracy. And so our focus is specifically on Kentucky. How has Kentucky impacted the national story from 1776 all the way up to 2026? And we're also hoping to lay down a good foundation for the 300th anniversary of the United States, for the future sense, and for future historians, future librarians. That is kind of our main goal as a commission and as an entity within the America 250 National Commission. And so we kind of said this in short at the very end of this paragraph, is that it is a celebration of the American spirit with Kentucky's role in shaping the values. So we're trying to put on a kind of a highlight of Kentucky itself. And so what is a commission? So this can be a little bit confusing. I certainly was confused before I made this infographic because I'm a visual learner. And so first off, it starts with a national organization that's partnered with the American Association for State and Local History, or AASLH for short. So there's the national organization, and then state institutions get sponsors to start their own commissions. So for us, our state sponsored the commission during Andy Beshear's first term as governor, and he had the State Institution of Kentucky Historical Society as the state sponsor for the commission. So KHS houses the commission, doesn't own the commission, if that makes sense. The governor then appoints members for the commission board. So we have a board of people who either still work in the field or have retired from the field that work in either history, tourism and heritage councils assignments, arts backgrounds as well, national preservation backgrounds. So they have a wide range of experiences, in particular with either tourism or heritage and historical thinking. And then the sites and organizations recognize how they can make their mark throughout the state. And so because this isn't just a KHS program, this is a statewide program, our job is basically for you all to feel empowered and to feel that you have a opportunity to also create your own events, create your own programs, create your own resources, in prepping your own communities for the 250th. And this is our last goal, is that all the communities of Kentucky will be engaged. So it's kind of a little graph right there. And so we have laid out some themes. So the original themes that were set by the American Association for State and Local History is called the Field Guide to the Centennial, and you can find this on the AASLH website, which is also linked through our 250th website that Hillary so kindly linked on the chat for us. There you can also find a program guide as well that they also came out with earlier this year, and that can help you come up with different events and programs based on these themes. But we took these generalized themes and kind of Kentucky-fied them in a way. We wanted them to be more Kentucky focused and Kentucky centric, and we jumped off the original point so that it hits more at home for us. And so first one is the test bed of democracy. So we were not technically a state in 1776. We were a state of being a county of Virginia, basically. That was our sort of identity in the American Revolution. But we were granted statehood shortly after in 1792, just 16 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And so from this statehood, Kentuckians have contended with historical events, legislation, and social movements. And for us, we're the 15th star on the flag. That's how us at KHS talk about it. In the War of 1812, there's a 15-star flag, and Kentucky was the 15th star over the 15th state. And so this whole theme is talking about democracy, civics, and how Kentucky has been involved in a lot of these national movements. And so the programming considerations for this one are: how has Kentucky responded to social, political, and economic changes through legislation? And how might our perspectives of different movements or groups reflect upon our state motto of united we stand, divided we fall? So this is kind of more or less talking about the different nationwide, so Kentucky's role in the civil rights movement, Kentucky's role in the suffragette movement, Kentucky's role in the prohibition. There's a lot of different ways that we were involved legislatively and politically in so many different national movements and international movements, such as the New Deal program. The next theme is I Too Am a Kentuckian. And so this is about how many different eras of Kentucky history, many different people have found their home in Kentucky from multiple different backgrounds. And so we, through this theme, are talking about from the past to the present, how have people identified and affirmed their role within the bluegrass state? How have people been able to become citizens or had their rights taken away being a Kentuckian and being in this state? And so this theme talks about kind of our forwards and also our setbacks throughout history, which is important. And the programming considerations for this one is: what does it mean or take to be considered a Kentuckian, and who gets to decide? This question can be asked throughout our whole entire history as a state, of who was considered a Kentuckian to when, what rights did they even have, and how have we grown and shaped as a state, and how have diverse groups of people contributed to the formation of our Commonwealth. So this whole theme is talking about that there's this idea of what Kentuckians are and Kentuckians should be, but there's so many different avenues and throughout history and even in the present of current Kentuckians making strides, making so many great different achievements and accomplishments in the state. And so we want to empower students through their own history, and also just the public themselves to be empowered to be a Kentuckian is the role of this theme. And then across geography. So this one focuses, so when I first moved to Kentucky, I didn't really understand that everyone identifies by their county. Never really grew up with that. And so this theme kind of talks about that, how we identify with our county, with where we're from, with where you're from in the land. And so from small town to thriving cities, rural landscapes to urban neighborhoods, we're trying to connect everyone together, from kids from Western Kentucky to Eastern Kentucky, adults from Northern Kentucky to Southern Kentucky, trying to get them to understand their own perspectives, experiences, depending on the region that they're from. And the programming considerations for this theme would be: what are the social, cultural movements or symbols that relate one area to another of the state? And what are ways we share our perspectives and commonalities with others around the state? And then we also have amplified influence. So this kind of goes off of a couple of the different themes before, but this one goes more in depth on the specific historical movements that Kentucky had either stood at the crossroads of or had a major impact in, such as Trail of Tears, the Underground Railroad, the Great Migration, the Second Great Awakening. Kentuckians' cultural and political output has expanded far beyond the state, influencing the nation's history. And so this one is just talking about how Kentucky has been that influence in the nation's story. And so this programming consideration focuses on who are local figures that have contributed regional and national movements, and how has Kentucky used movements to contribute to a sense of American identity. And then we have the past as present. So how has the past shaped our future and shaped us in our present time? As we say, history has repeated itself. And so we look at this by examining history, and we want the public to understand how to examine history in order for them to understand the things that have been repeated in their future. And the programming considerations for this one is, how has the history in your community or movements changed over time? And what tools or events can be utilized to help young people take ownership over history? And this can't just be just young people too. I give this mostly because I'm the education specialist, and when people think of education, they think of younger children or school-age children. But education is something that's everlasting and never stops. And so this theme can be used for all the way up to our seniors and our elderly, because this tool and utilizing and taking history is something that's a lifelong skill, and it's a lifelong endeavor. And so here's our anniversaries that are coming up, and some of these may affect your own county, and so this will also be in the PowerPoint as we go on that Hillary will talk about in your learning portal. And so you can keep these on hand, but there's so many different anniversaries as well that if you would like, I can also share that full list with Hillary so she can have that on hand, because these are some of just the big ones that, for me personally, I've been focusing a lot of my projects on, or the team has. So first off, Choctaw Academy, which was an Indigenous boarding school. It was the first federally funded and federally organized Indigenous boarding school in the United States, and that was established here in Kentucky in Scott County, and they will be turning 200 years in 2025. We have Boone Trace's 250th, that will be in 2025 as well. I recommend that if you are in a county that does have Boone Trace going through it, there is basically a hike happening, and they will be passing a axe between each hikers from each state. So they're going all the way down from North Carolina all the way up through Kentucky in the Boone Trace hike. So you can have that into your community, and I believe there's some sort of like map watching so you can see the person as they go. Fort Boonesboro's 250th, that took place this month, but their celebration will be in June. They will be turning 250 years this year. Leestown, Kentucky will be turning 250 years in 2025. This was an early settlement of Kentucky. Then this next one is super important. So I can send out which countries are part of Boone Trace. Personally, for me, I think that there's a lot, mostly on the eastern side of the state, but I can send out to Hillary which exact counties will be affected by the Boone Trace hike, affected in a good way. Thelma Stovall will be 50 years since she was first elected as the first female lieutenant governor in 2025. The Scopes trial 100th anniversary will be in 2025. The teacher and educator that was involved in the Scopes trial was from Kentucky. The Lynch Coal Town will be 100 years in 2025. The Frontier Nursing Service will be turning 100 this year as well. The construction of Kentucky's first railway will be 200 years in 2025. Moneta J. Sleets Jr., who is a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer, an extremely talented individual. He'll be turning 100 years in 2026. And Ernest Reuben Crowdis Jr., and he was casted in Uncle Tom's Cabin with the first black cast of Uncle Tom's Cabin 150 years ago in 2026. And Ernest Reuben Crowdis Jr. is a Kentuckian himself. So these are just some ideas for you to go through moving forward. And then we have our grant program. So we had a couple different libraries, which I'll show you on the next slide, who did receive one of our grants. And this is a very great opportunity for libraries like yours to get involved in the 250th. and to have some financial backing from us for your endeavors, because this isn't just us, it's all of us. And so we want you to be able to dream big and to do cool projects and ideas for your community. And so we have our next round of these grant applications up, which Hillary has linked in the chat already. But I'm just going over with you all what the grant program is, how much money they expect, and the different ideas and concepts. And we can also brainstorm together different ideas that you may have for your own project. And so the whole basis of this grant program was to help communities and history organizations commemorate and celebrate the 250th. And so the America250 Kentucky grants aim to improve the programming and sustainability of Kentucky museum and historic sites as they commemorate the 250 years of American history since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Funding is up to $10,000, and this goes for museums in Kentucky, local history organizations, public libraries, educational institutions, and other government agencies, and 501c3 non-for-profit institutions. And then these are the examples of eligible projects. So we have research, publications, exhibition implementation, interpretive signs, so maybe a museums to go for us that we do, or signs that kind of explain your local history that you have up for the public in your library, like a little mini library with the signage. Events and public programs, educational programs, production and implementation of tours, historic tours of your local area, and the like of that. Planning, including research, collections assessments, exhibition planning, event programming, planning, collections management, materials or software, and then collections preservation, stewardship, or storage supplies, materials. So if you have a genealogy records collection in your library, we would give you different objects and tools so that we can make sure that that collection can stay around for forever. And then digital history projects. So it would be scanning different sources that you may have in your library that's not available online, and the like. Oh, I double-clicked accidentally. Projects that are not eligible for these grants are brick and mortar projects, so like window replacements, shingle repairs, building maintenance and utilities, groundskeepings, insurance costs, interest, or debt is not eligible. Payments or other projects that KHS considers to fall under an organization's day-to-day or administrative operations like personnel, payroll, or benefits. Purchasing, collections, artistic projects like murals, theatrical productions, etc. The Kentucky Arts Council, through the America250 grant that they've received and money they received through us, already have different grants for artistic projects that are similar in this realm through their website, and that is through the Kentucky Arts Council. State historical markers. State historical markers are a little bit different than how they used to be back in this way back when you got to be able to pay $6,000 and there'd be a marker. Nowadays, it's a little bit more of a restrictive process, and we do about 6 markers every year, and it's an application process. Then fundraising events, oral history projects. So Kentucky Oral History Commission through KHS already offers a variety of grants for the preservation of your community stories and the creation of oral histories. And so we want you to be able to use those first before coming to the America250 grant opportunities. Thank you, Hillary, for putting that link in. So the application scoring is based on the following. So the relevant of the project to America250 themes. So the themes I just showed you earlier in the slide that you'll get at the end of this presentation. Demonstrated ability to complete the project. So what is your timeline? What is your plan? And it being detailed out. Outcomes and impact. How are you going to gather the information of your outcomes and your impact on the community? Originality and quality, and then lastly, the budget. So this is for the fiscal year application information for this next upcoming grant cycle. So, and that has already begun. That application is already up on our website. Our application deadline is June 8th. Our award notification will be on July 25th. The maximum amount will be $10,000, and then the cash match or in-kind match requirement, there is none. So I'm going to go over last year's fiscal year because some libraries were awarded this grant last year. So last year's grant cycle, we totaled around $249,657. distributed to organizations statewide in Kentucky. The grant review panel considered over 100 applicants. 29 organizations across 19 counties received funds. These are the current libraries that received America250 grant funds: Casey County Public Library, Greene County Public Library, Jackson County Public Library, and Spencer County Public Library. All received grants through the America250 grant program. And then this is our map of all the different counties that received the grant last year in the last grant cycle. And so as you can see, Western Kentucky, there's not as many, but we're trying to reach out more so that all of the state can be positively affected with the America250 grant program. And lastly, this is our QR code. So if you need the QR code, but I know Hillary already linked in for our website, but here's the QR code to get directly to the America250 website. And on there, if you already are planning different events for 250, we promote those. So you can put them on our community calendar and we can put them up on there for your event that you're hosting. So yes, that is all I have. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, or if you have any ideas or comments, I'm more than happy to answer or just to chit chat. But this is a great opportunity, and we really hope to see your applications in the America250 grant program, because libraries are an essential and important part of multiple different communities throughout Kentucky. So thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. Would you be able to go back to the themes, and we can maybe talk about some of the different ideas that libraries may have? I know Breathitt County is represented, Nelson County, I think maybe Wolfe County, Fleming County. And then, yeah, I like Trisha's comment too.
So I know that for one of the libraries, there was an educational program using the funds, and I can get exactly what that looked like for you all. I was not part of the review committee, so I don't really have a full description of what the projects were when we gave out the grants, but I'm more than happy to kind of come up with a list and get that from Ashley, who is our commission administrator, to give us the full description of what the projects were. But I know for one of the libraries, it was an educational program about freeing emancipation Black families in Kentucky.
Thank you, Maddie. So this first theme, testbed of democracy, contending with historic events. You talked about New Deal programs, and that made me think about Franklin Roosevelt's Packhorse Librarians. That's very much connecting, and several of your libraries participated in the KET documentary, Packhorse Librarians of Appalachia. So that could be something that you could think about doing, but there are many other things. And I really appreciate Maddie sharing the different events coming up in 2025, the different anniversaries, and then even more may be coming up in 2026. So you all know your communities and things that could be. We've got Duncan Hines from Kentucky, so all the food that I think of from the state, how many different things could we connect in that area? Going back to praise songs, Crystal Wilkinson's book from last year, I believe, and how she talks about connections with food and history. So that's just some ideas for the testbed of democracy, but I'd love to hear your all's ideas or things that you know in your community that you might be interested in, even just kind of brainstorming. I think that we allowed some time for the brainstorming to happen, so feel free to type in the chat or I grew up partly in Fayette County and partly in Bourbon County, and one of the people that we highlight in Bourbon County is Garrett Morgan, who invented the traffic light, the stoplight, and in addition, the gas masks that were used in World War I, the designs for that, but he did many other things. So highlighting things from the people from your community. Great. Thank you, Tricia.
Yes, so we are planning a statehood, kind of an early America Kentucky exhibit in Keeneland, which is our traveling exhibit area. So that will go from 1776 to 1792. Those are the years that they're focusing on. Other than that, I'm not really as much as I'm able to share on what that exhibit will look like. But I do also know that we will be revamping some of our museums to goes, and those will be available for you all. Museum to Go is basically a program where we send you all pop-up banners about different subjects. We have a Daniel Boone, we have emancipation, an enslavement one. We have a Harrodsburg 250th one that we just kind of came up with last year for their 250th. But there's a wide range in subjects and themes all related to Kentucky history, and those are available for you all to get for your local library. And so I highly recommend you check those out as well. And as we revamp that program, we will be putting that up on the website as well. Thank you, Hillary, for linking that in. And that also can come with some resources as well, and how you can talk about that with your local community. But testbed of democracy, I say that with civics in general, we've kind of strayed away from talking about civics or government as much sometimes because it feels like it's a very personal thing. But nowadays, it's more or less important to have conversations. And I don't say that discussions are bad when there's a level of ground in it and a level of common ground within those conversations. And so that's where I see testbed of democracy is being and creating those conversations again and letting those conversations occur again and those discussions happen again.
You say,
If that makes sense.
yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you all have connections with facilitators who can help library staff have those conversations with the community, or do you know of, I know it's not necessarily something that you would, but would you have a, or even a list of recommendations or something that facilitators, I think there may be some organizations.
Certainly, there's a lot of different organizations that work in the civics realm. A lot of them particularly with students, but there's more coming out of the woodwork for particularly with adults, like McConnell Scholars, the We the People organization. There's also one that's specifically with Gen Z that's called, oh goodness gracious, Made by Us is a great organization that works particularly with the 18 to 30-year-olds. And they do a lot of work in creating those conversations between young adults and older adults. And I can give out those resources as well. But there's a lot of great moderators out there that can have and help you all with those conversations. And I know Made by Us already has guides on their website about those conversations happening in the local communities.
Thank you, Maddie.
Mm-hmm.
We can go to the next theme if you want, or
yeah, certainly. And this one's an important one too. I too am a Kentuckian because this one talks about a lot of the things that have occurred in our state. Some of the things we would rather not talk about is the fact that many people were not seen as Kentuckians who were Kentuckians. A lot of people and culture of Kentucky that was kind of swamped down for a very long time. And so I think this theme focuses on that. There are so many different people who are Kentuckians, that Kentuckians aren't just this sort of stereotypical person. You know, there's so many different people and Kentuckians looks different in different lights. And that's kind of the role of this theme in particular. Oh, yes, that's great. Yes, the railroads, air travel, all of that is also amazing when it comes to Kentucky history. And this sort of theme with the program considerations, these are more questions, but these also can help start those conversations within your staff of what does this theme look like and what could the programming look like related to this theme in particular, because these kind of histories are really hard. They're hard to digest for some people, and that's also worth acknowledging. And that's similar to another thing that we have later on where it talks about the good things that Kentucky's been a part of nationally, but also things that are extremely shameful that Kentucky was a part of. And so it's mixing those two together. And that's kind of the role of America 250 in itself, is recognizing the wrongs, but also seeing the future and the rights, if that makes sense. I can gab and yeah.
Sure.
But these questions are important because they start those conversations. And so have diverse groups contributed to the formation of our Commonwealth? So all the slides you saw had different photos or pictures. So this is Didamia Durham. She was from Danville, so she was from Boyle County. She was a free Black woman in Boyle County, and she owned different factories and different businesses with her husband, Dennis. So there's different stories like that within each community that you go searching and you find them, and they're really important to tell. So then we can move on to the next one. Cross geographies. As I said, I never grew up with identifying with the counties, but Hillary knew right away which county she was from. I think I grew up in Franklin County, Ohio. I think that's the name of the county I'm from. But wherever Columbus is, that's my county. We never really identified with counties. So moving to Kentucky, everyone told me what county they were from, and I was like, cool. So, but this is, yes, but this is kind of more or less talking about that these people from different counties connecting with each other and connecting with their own experiences, particularly urban and rural. There's a great group called Rural Urban Exchange that focuses on this, as well as this idea of meshing the two together and helping them form their own community through those connections. But this idea is talking about across geography, how is the shared history being in Kentucky has drawn similarities or there's a disconnect. So for example, Hillary brought up pack horse librarians. Jefferson County kids are not going to know what the pack horse librarians are because it didn't affect them. They always had access to books and libraries. And so there's a disconnect between the two. Also that in the Frontier Nursing Service that was very similar to pack horse librarians, but brought healthcare to those very rural communities. Yes, the Kentucky Historical Society has a lot of things that are digitized, particularly with our manuscripts, thanks to our digital archivist, Alyssa, who is amazing. And so I highly recommend, because if you just look up your county, you will find different, collections items or manuscripts available for you all that relate to your own specific county that you can use in your programmings and they're free of use. And so I recommend that when you go through the slideshow again, when you talk about different themes, that you look through the questions, and because these questions are to make you think, and also they help brainstorm as well of the different programs and different event opportunities that are available through your organization on these specific themes. And then amplified influences, this one's an extremely important one that I talked about earlier, is kind of hinted towards, but these different major historical movements that Kentucky was a part of, and also the KDLA has some great programming kits related to Kentucky history and those big different events or different inventions that happen in Kentucky. And so once again, the programming considerations, and I really recommend to look into the local figures and local history. That kids see these people, or adults too, see the people that have come from their town, and it brings up a sense of pride. Same with Garrett Morgan, sense of pride. There's something with knowing that that figure came from where you're from that makes it different for you and makes history much more tangible for you. And then how has different Kentucky movements that started here contributed to the United States story. And then this one is one that I think that a lot of libraries can very much do a lot with, which is the past is present, because the past is present. We see a lot of things repeating. We see a lot of things happening in the public sphere currently that's affecting a lot of people. And we see a lot of the things that happened way back when reoccurring and rehappening. So that we keep that kind of eye view on history, that we know what's happening, that's been repeated, and there's a sort of hope for the future, that you can be influenced and amplified by your past history to feel boosted for the future. So yeah. And then this sort of histories, and also I'm more than happy to brainstorm with you all. I know Hillary said she'd more than happy to brainstorm, but different ideas about different anniversaries that are occurring in your county. So these are a wide range of different ones, but there's a whole list that I have. I will give to Hillary to give to you all as well, because I do have a lot on there, because there's a lot of things coming up that Kentucky was a part of that we don't really realize Kentucky was a part of. And a lot of them are different smaller towns as well, and their influence in the national story. So, yeah. Is there any questions at all? Any other questions or ideas or comments?
Well, I know I've inundated the chat with lots of links, but I'll make sure to work with Trisha to get the links to you, and then the additional links from Maddie to you. Yeah, please, if you already have some ideas too, feel free to go on and share those in the chat, or questions that you may have for Maddie. She's very responsive and happy to email with you. I feel like, when at least with me, so I think she would be glad to, and she just said she'd be glad to help brainstorm. So, but yeah, I'd like to feel free to share your thoughts in the chat.
And I put my email in the chat, so you can also just email me too, if that's your more preferred way. But yeah.
Well, we can keep having the conversation, but I do want to share and thank the Institute for Museum and Library Services. And I'm going to put the slide up here. You all are familiar with that, but I want to thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services for today's webinar and sponsoring this. The work that actually probably Maddie supporting some of her work too. We're both being supported by IMLS, and just want to thank them for their sponsorship of today's webinar. I want to thank Maddie for being here too, and all of you for being here. Let me know if you think of questions later. You can certainly email me and I can pass those along, or again, well, you're welcome to email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and also a link to a survey about today's webinar. You can share your thoughts. We do look at these and try to make decisions and so forth about what other kind of webinars to offer and so forth. So just appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us, and thank you again, Maddie. Thank you all for being here. There's lots of things that can be done. Kentucky has a rich history, and then like Maddie was saying too, these local towns. Harrodsburg had its 250th last year. Lexington's having its 250th this year, and there have already lots of different things going on in Lexington. So that's even, you can work, and I'm happy to connect you with staff across the counties too. If you want to talk, well, what did you all do, or the different things that occurred, be glad to help connect you with your colleagues around the state. So thank you, Kimberly, for your comment. Well, this is the last call for comments or questions, any kind of discussion.